Well, hello. Welcome to All Today. This is a two-man power trip week episode. No Setzer, who is sick. So, Cheston, how are you doing?
I'm not feeling so good.
You're not feeling so hot? Yeah, your
Yeah.
tournament bracket broke
Oh God,
long
it's really
ago.
bad, and Mario's dead, and
Yeah, it's true. Mario, R.I.P. the king, Mario.
my copy of Mario 3D All Stars actually
It
disappeared
exploded.
out of my
My
shelf.
Switch is out of commission because I have a digital copy.
It's really was unfortunate the way they did it. They warned me, but I didn't listen.
The we want to play guys came over to my house and stole my Switch. Says you can't have this anymore.
Uh, all those conservatives telling me that they would come for my guns were wrong. They were coming for my Mario games.
That's right. Yeah, well, we can be a Nintendo heavy episode this week since it's just the two of us.
Yes,
Yes.
I know. I was in charge of the docket, and I put not only a Nintendo story but a baseball story too. So
That's true. That's right. We're getting deep into sports today. I hope
I
you
should
hope you enjoy.
have gone for the Triple Crown and thrown in a wrestling story.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you get wrestling in there, then it's like sets your poison.
Yeah, too bad there was no wrestling news. I could have just like I don't know. Hey, did
Brought
you know
the
that?
AEW news.
Hey, did you know that Kofi Kingston likes video games?
He talks about it sometimes. They have a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Aha.
up, up, down, down. Like the Contra code.
Yes. Oh, I didn't get that. That's a very subtle reference. So let's start with you then. Well, I guess what have you been playing?
I had a kind of busy week, a little hectic, so I slumped into a bit of a comfortable gaming hole when I
Hmm.
had time this week, and I played an old school point and click adventure game. And so I downloaded the Sam and Max Save the World remaster for the
Oh, how about
Switch.
that? How about that? I hear that they have altered dialogue, which I do not like. But
Well, I know you don't like that, but they're pretty upfront. They only altered a handful of lines that maybe were humorous in 2006, but in a new product released on new platforms in 2020, probably would have drawn them undue ire. So they actually handled it pretty well. They on Steam, not on Switch, but on Steam, they released the new remasters, and as free extra content with that, they included all of the 2006 originals with all the original dialogue, all the original, like basically everything they changed. This was the version. This is the literal original version, is what I should say. That
right,
would be the best way to say it.
that's the one I would play then. But I'm
Uh,
guessing that's not on the
no,
option on the
you would
Switch.
no, you would be wrong to play that version. I think the incidental dialogue that was cut was really minor. And I think the big thing about this remaster is that the Sam and Max Save the World Season 1, you might not remember this fun little history snippet, or maybe you do. I know I do. It was the ringer for GameTap,
I
the
remember
subscription
this. Yeah,
service.
absolutely, I remember
Yeah,
that.
so this was the first season, and Telltale at the time was a new company formed from some of the people who splintered off from LucasArts after LucasArts imploded and stopped being allowed to make fun adventure games.
Not to be confused with Traveler's Tales.
Not to be confused with Traveler's Tales, as I learned from a PR person at one point. But since it was their first game, it was pretty rough looking.
Yeah,
I actually remember in 2006, even then as a child, playing it on GameTap on our PC, where I should have been happy to just play anything. I do remember playing a little bit of the first episode and thinking that it just looked rough, and a lot of those early Telltale games, that or Strong Bad's Cool Game for Awesome People,
yeah. Where's that
those
remaster?
it should be remastered too. But those all looked just kind of choppy, and Telltale games always looked kind of off throughout their history. But I think something like Walking Dead at least looked like it had some sort of style to it that made it
Hmm.
almost acceptable the way it looked. But the Sam and Max games just kind of looked bad, and the remaster looks pretty nice. It actually doesn't, if it was just released as a new game on the Switch out of nowhere, I wouldn't really bat an eye. And if it was released on PC as like a lower level indie game, Again, it wouldn't be something that it wouldn't strike me. I haven't once felt like the graphics look rough. So I do think visually this is definitely the version to play. And I think the changes they made are so incidental that if you didn't know that they changed anything, you wouldn't even know what to look for. So I certainly would recommend anybody plays the newer versions. But these games, early in the Telltale cycle, before they became basically just dialogue heavy narrative adventures like Walking Dead,
Hmm.
these were traditional ass point and click adventure games. So a lot of clicking on everything in a room, a lot of like trying to see which things fit together to solve this puzzle. There's a lot of that, and they didn't edit that, which is good. I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, I remember you watching you play Strong Bad, and it was a lot of puzzle solving.
Yeah, and this definitely I've only played through one entire episode because this was episodic. It was split into six, so I played through one entire episode this week over the course of the week, and yeah, those are some old. Some of those are some old puzzles. Let me tell you, and I don't think it. I think it strikes a pretty good balance because I think if you go way back to like, I don't know, Curse of Monkey Island, Escape from Monkey Island, those kind of games, or even further back, some of the puzzles are just absurd, and it's like you need to have a FAQ,
Oh yeah, yeah, no
right?
doubt. I remember having to do it for Escape from Monkey Island on the PS2. So
Yeah, and this one I didn't have to look anything up. There was at least two parts where I had to sit there and run through the options several times. But eventually the logic was there. It wasn't like it wasn't a huge reach. It was definitely a logical leap, but it wasn't so absurd that a player couldn't be expected to go to it. So I like that, and I think that's helped by, I think I actually kind of like the episodic model when it was used for these games. I think
yes,
it was nice because it limited the um, variables that you had to work with.
yes.
So you only had so many items in your inventory. It wasn't like you had like 20 things you'd picked up over the course of an adventure. It's like a 2 or 3 hour episode. So over the course of that episode, you pick up like a bowling ball. You always have a gun. You have this like little pellet gun that shoots onions. Like you had all these little knickknacks, but you only had like four or five. So there wasn't so many variables that I had to run through like 30 minutes in one scene. So
Constantly clicking it. Yeah, I gotcha.
yeah, so I think it is. I think it's a pretty neat game. It's definitely old fashioned, but that's the kind of adventure game that I like. I like those little puzzles, and I like those dialogue trees and all of those things. The only part of this game, honestly, that really sticks out in a negative way is that, and probably tied to its 2006 development, and probably relatively low budget development. Animation wise, it's very clear that they didn't have very many animations, and it gets a little exhausting sometimes watching Sam, the dog character. He's just always pointing at things,
Yeah.
like my child, and he's just constantly pointing. And it's not like the first time I thought I saw it, I thought it was like tied in with the dialogue specifically, but then eventually I realized that he just has like a cycle during the dialogue trees,
Right.
and he runs through that cycle pretty quick. And I think that would definitely stick out in a modern context. I think you'd have a lot of people jumping on that, especially in a game that's supposed to imitate like a cartoon. I think
Yes.
people would notice that.
Yeah, I feel like the Walking Dead success killed this genre because the Telltale like games were the last to be like pure adventure games for quite a while. And then when they stopped making them, they just stopped existing.
Yeah, the genre, it's weird because it died. It died before this, basically. I mean, there were a few games, but you know, yeah, LucasArts said no more, and that was one of the big sources of these types of games. And you had a few little odds and ends here and there, but yeah, it pretty much died, and then it was revived for this short period with this series, and they did Strong Bad, which we mentioned, and I want to say that the Tales from Monkey Island reboot series was also point and click,
I
very
believe so.
traditional. And, but that Walking Dead was just lightning in a bottle.
The thing is, it was good one time, but then they made every single game like that, and it got kind of tiring.
Yeah, I think they had a few others that I thought were okay.
I enjoyed Wolf Among Us. Thought that
Yeah,
was
I
pretty good.
know people like that one. Did they ever finish the sequel to that
I don't
before they
think
got
so.
shuttered?
I think they're still talking about it's coming, but I don't
Okay,
believe it.
okay. Um, they had the Batman games, which were okay as
Didn't
well.
play.
They
They
had
had,
some interesting twists on it,
they had
and
Minecraft
I
and
know some people really like the Borderlands games, but I
uh,
can't bother to play
no, I
a
refuse to engage
Borderlands
in that
game.
world.
It's, uh, I can understand why they ditched this style because I can't imagine younger people playing this.
No, too
I
much
just
tedium.
I just think you have to have been alive at the time when computer labs were new in schools,
Oh yeah,
and you just had this genre of games that could be loosely attributed as educational,
extremely loosely.
right? Like where you just point and click at things and you have dialogue, and you have to have some amount of nostalgia for that. Otherwise, these games feel like they are just the most ancient relic
Well,
ever.
I'm kind of surprised that that the original Sam Max from the '90s hasn't been revived at some point because I know that they revived Day of the Tentacle
Hmm.
and Grim Fandango. So I feel
Yeah.
like people might be missing that, and also like I don't think Monkey Island ever got that treatment either. So I think that's kind of
Secret
strange.
Secret of Monkey Island and Curse of Monkey Island both have HD remakes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about. I know the PS2 game does not, and then the third game, which I don't remember. I don't think that one got a remake either.
But my point stands about the originals, like Sam Max back from
Yeah,
back in the
I
day.
don't know if that's a rights thing because it's based on a comic,
No, true.
and I don't really know how the rights worked with the Telltale game because the Telltale game was a big return for that series, and I seem to remember that being something that people were pretty surprised was coming back. And I was surprised that they remastered these games again because all the things that happened with Telltale. And I think this developer must have gotten a hold of the assets and the license for that release and all of the subsequent seasons because there were three of them released by Telltale. But I don't know that because those games would be tied up in LucasArts, and that could be tricky.
Well, I'm glad this is getting a little bit of time in the sun from you, I suppose, because when I browse through the PS Now catalog, it has like all these old Sam and Max games on there. I'm like, oh, they existed, and it's
Yeah,
Strong Bad's there, just
yeah,
sitting.
it's on PS Now.
Yeah,
All of
all of
those.
them,
Oh,
all of them. Mhm.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, you have some amount of history playing point and click adventure games.
Yes.
I think these are mostly. I'm not 100% sure it's your bag. I think the
I don't
humor
know.
is a little hit and miss sometimes.
It was my bag at one point, but
Yeah.
I think I've grown impatient in my old age.
I kind of just like that I mean, it really does feel like you're playing through a Saturday morning cartoon
I like
to
that.
me. It is truly episodic right now. Like it's not like every episode's super connected yet. It's you solve this mystery, you encounter the bad guy, you deal with the bad guy, and then everything's done and then the next episode starts and oh, everybody's got their new thing. Oh, Bosco's got shaving cream at the store now and I can use that to pretend that I have rabies to get into a audition for this Hollywood sitcom. Like, it's kind of like watching something on the Fox box.
Well, I'd be more interested in playing an episodic adventure game than I think like a long, Day at the Tentacle or Monkey Island sort of thing, just because
Yeah.
this is shorter and it's less experimentation.
The episodic adventure game seems to only live on with Don't Nod and Life is Strange. And I like Life is
Yes.
Strange quite a bit. But they are distancing themselves because the new Life is Strange, which is coming out later this year, is not episodic at all. So probably the last dying days of the episodic story game, sadly.
Well, we'll see. It'll come back some point,
Well,
I'm
maybe Game
sure.
Pass and services like that will be. Seems like a good venue for
It's a
that kind
good
of thing.
dumping ground for that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I think a lot of times it was just a hard sell for people like when I was playing the Game of Thrones Telltale games, which aren't very good. And I bought the first episode. You pay $5 for one episode, or you buy the whole season. But if you buy the whole season, you have to hope that you really like the, the first episode. and it was always just kind of awkward.
I've only bought the whole season like when it's new one time because I
Hmm.
did buy Wolf Among Us way after the fact on Steam, but I bought Walking Dead season 2 because I trusted the game after the first
Hmm.
one. Never again. Never again doing that. I'm
Yeah,
going episode by episode from here on out if I
yeah.
ever go
I'm
back.
sure a lot of people got burned like you, and I think I kind of did too, which is why I bought episodic, and then I would stop buying because I wouldn't be interested enough by the time the second episode came around. But if it was released on Game Pass, then
Yeah,
maybe people would be more willing to check back in with it like they are with their other subscription streaming services.
I think so. If you're already paying for Game Pass, you're not like
Yeah,
financially obligated to it.
right.
But yeah, but that Walking Dead season 1, that was some
It
experience.
sure was. Yeah, and for now I'll just enjoy trekking back through these old-fashioned episodic adventures, and then I was listening to a podcast with these folks recently, and they indicated that they're going to do the other two seasons. So I will look forward to more remasters,
That's
so that I can
exciting.
play these games without having to like dig my eyes out of my skull.
Well, I hope they do Strong Bad again because that is a unique part of like internet culture that
Hmm.
with Flash dying as
I
kind
reviewed
of
that game.
I remember. I remember. So,
It's pretty good.
oh, I remember thinking the tone matched the web series pretty well.
Yeah, and it was a WiiWare game.
It was.
Hmm.
Well, with Flash dying, I would like to see Strong Bad live on in some way. You know, it's
I think they did archive their stuff.
well, I would hope so. It was historically significant, I would say.
It is,
Um,
and some of those are pretty funny.
oh, the emails still hold up.
Yeah,
I
some of
say,
those emails are still pretty good.
yeah, indeed. So was that your week in gaming?
I played Mario 3D World some more.
Yeah,
It's-
did you?
and now I'm starting to, I think when I finish it for real, I don't think I'm gonna be sad like I was because it's got a lot of levels.
Told you
I
you
think
weren't.
I saw the next world open up and I was like, "Geez, all right, I get it. All right, there's more." I mean, good for them for. It's funny because when I played this game on the Wii U, I think I stopped right at the end of the main story, and I was left thinking like there wasn't enough content in this game. And now I'm playing it and I'm like, God, there's just so much in this game.
Well, I think I 100%ed everything in the game about 15 hours. So
Hmm.
it's about Mario 64 length if your goal is just to play the super hard level. So if
Hmm.
that's your goal, that's how long it took me to beat everything. But
Yeah, that is what I will do.
I ignored the beat every levels, every character to get like a special stamp for them. That's a waste
Yeah,
of time.
that would be something. I think we've talked about this with Galaxy. The idea like, okay, if I'm gonna do that, it's gonna be because I'm gonna come back and play this game again, and I'll play through it as a different character next time.
Now, if the easiest way to do this is if you just play 4 players through the whole thing, and
Eh,
then you do it most of it. But then you also have Rosalina, who is unlocked
yeah.
after you beat the game. So
Yeah.
you have to
Well,
go
then
back
again,
anyway.
is she included in the flag topping
She
thing?
is,
Oh,
but
jeez.
I had originally thought that you had to do that as everybody to unlock the super hard level, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Screw that.
Hmm.
But luckily, you don't have to.
Yeah. It would be much quicker to go through it because you're not doing the stars and
Oh
stamps.
yeah, those levels are short if you're not looking for stuff. So
Yes. And that was also why I thought it was short on the Wii U because I was playing it wrong.
well,
I
I
didn't know.
mean,
How
well,
was I
I mean,
supposed to know?
that also makes it kind of replayable because if I were to go back and just beat levels and not
Yeah.
collect things, I would probably beat that game in 5 hours maybe.
I think
So
easily. I
so
think that'd be a very quick clear.
oh yeah, but I mean it's fun. So
Yeah, it is a delightful little game. Perfect little bite-sized chunks, which is nice for
any
me right now.
any Bowser's Fury yet?
Still no Bowser's Fury.
Ugh, you're just waiting for
Once
Setzer
I
to be here
finish
for
that
that.
main story, the thing is that I'm not gonna play Bowser's Fury in portable mode. I don't
You know
plan
what?
on.
I actually played a fair amount of it in portable mode, and
Is it fine?
it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I will. But my plan has been to play it in docked, so I've been waiting to finish it in portable because I bought the physical copy, and then I
Ah,
was gonna go put the physical copy in my docked Switch because
I
I
see.
have two Switches, of course.
You
So
degenerate.
yeah, I am the worst. when
Yep.
when we complain about Nintendo later, remember that I'm the reason they get away with this.
Yeah, I played most of it docked, but I did play some portable. I did not feel that it was so bad.
Not a Xenoblade situation.
It's not quote unquote unplayable. So
Good to know.
No, not a Xenoblade situation. Though I also found Xenoblade playable. But
I actually played a little Xenoblade Portable and didn't think it looked too bad.
no, it's fine. I
It's
think
definitely low resolution, but hey, guess where it was also low resolution?
the Wii. So there you
On
go.
the Wii.
The
So
original
a
console game.
480i,
A
baby.
game that is way too ambitious to be on the Wii. I don't know how it worked, but they did it. So did you have anything else you want to talk about?
I played some more Mega Man 4 for a little bit, but I don't really want to talk about Mega Man 4
That's all right.
personally. Actually, that's not true. But I know that nobody. I could talk about Mega Man 4 for probably 4 hours exactly.
I would have to replay the Mega Man because I think I remember 4 being one of my least favorites, but I don't remember for sure.
It is the definition of a middle of the road Mega Man. It does inspire the worst trend in Mega Man, which is the 2 Wily Castles, which is probably soured you on it when you played it.
I didn't hate 2 Wileys as much as you did, I don't think, but
It's just too much.
yeah. Because 6 also does it, and I love 6.
6 is a great game.
So, and I think, but I think 4 and 5 were my low points, but I have to
4 and
replay.
5 are 3, 4, and 5 are all relative low points, I think.
Okay. Well, but I don't know why 6 rebounds. That's so weird.
It truly doesn't make sense because 6 is such an afterthought.
And to be fair, like the first time I played it, I had very low expectations for it.
I did too.
So
I did that Mega Man summer where I was not working and I played one Mega Man a day and finished it. And I got to 6, weary from 5 and 4, and I just blew through it and loved every moment.
Yeah, so I'm curious if it would hold up since those expectations are gone, but maybe we'll see one day.
I think it would.
So I have played a couple things this week. I won't go too deep into one because I'd rather Setzer be here for that. But I will, and I also don't want to talk about Code Vein because there's really not much to say. I kind of just stopped playing it because I wasn't having a great time. But I just don't think I was in the mood for it, so I don't want to be unfair to the game. But I feel like I enjoyed it when the levels were short, and when the levels got longer, I was having less fun. I will instead focus on It Takes Two, a game that came out, I think, last week. I don't know.
As recently, because everybody
recently.
was freaking out about it recently.
But it is a co-op game. It stars the Olsen twins. You're it's a Prince and the Pauper situation. No, that's the movie.
Oh man, the hits keep coming.
Hits keep coming. No, it's a game about this couple is getting a divorce and their daughter is very sad about it, and through her misery, she somehow transports the souls of her two parents into these dolls, and your goal is to co-op your way through levels to get your bodies back.
So like Geist.
Sure. It's a straight up co-op game where you cannot beat it by yourself. There is no way you could go solo. It reminds me of Goof Troop on the Super Nintendo or Cookies and Cream on the PS2.
Cookie and Cream.
Whatever. Like 5 people played that game. It is an Atlas game.
It's a From Software game.
Oh, From, but it was published by Atlas.
It's the Dark Souls of games where you play as 2 bunnies.
It has the big inflatable chest people is what I think most people would remember that for. But it's a very interesting sort of game. It's lots of gameplay styles and lots of puzzle solving. So it's really neat. And the story is really, heartbreaking and touching because, it's dealing with like a couple that's no longer in love and whatnot and their child. But it's also, funny. So it's just a good experience.
So it's a platformer?
It is a platformer. There are lots of different like gameplay elements to it.
Uh-huh.
Like you'll go through a level and one player will have like a hammer and the other will have nails, and you got to work together to get through that. And then you get through that section, and then the next section you'll have like, I don't know, one player can grow big or turn small, and the other one will be able to like walk upside down. It's about combining your abilities to get through areas.
How does it like? Is it split screen? Is it
It
side
is
scrolling?
It's split screen.
Okay.
Vertically sliced.
Okay.
They have an option like to play online, but I think that would be a bad time. I think this game was meant for couch co-op. So I've been playing with my wife, and she'll solve some puzzles and I'll solve some puzzles, and it's just working together to solve this thing. It's very neat. It takes me back to, I don't know, an older style of game.
It seems pretty unique though.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Like, when I first heard about it and I heard it was a co-op side scroll or co-op platforming game, I pictured in my head something like Unravel 2 because I think that's usually what is the co-op standard. But
Yes.
this is a little more almost asymmetric because each player is slightly different.
Yeah. I mean, they control the same, but
Yeah,
the gadgets you get is different for each player.
right.
So there's a
Um,
difference between playing as the boy and the girl.
yeah, my wife and I actually played. This is Joseph Ferris, the brothers
The coked out
developer,
individual
the
during the
guy who freaked
VJs.
out about the Oscars.
Well,
Who,
he's awesome.
yeah, he's a winner in my book.
He's my boy.
Yeah, we played his previous game a little bit last night, actually, A Way Out, which
Yes.
is similar in that it's a vertical slice co-op game where each player takes control of a different prisoner, and you're doing like you control the same, but you have like slightly different objectives that are supposed to merge together. We played a little bit. It feels it's neat. It feels kind of rough. It feels like, based on what you're describing, almost like a proof of concept for this idea, and then this game might be the one that takes it to the next level and makes it.
I would recommend any couple that plays games should play this. I think it is a good way to spend the day. I don't know how long it is. I get the impression we're probably a little over halfway through, but I don't know. But I would say it's probably like 10 to 15 hours.
That seems like a good amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it hasn't like when you're getting tired of one gameplay gimmick, it'll ditch it, go to the next thing. So nothing overstays its welcome. And then like while you're playing, you'll come across like little versus games or whatever.
Hmm.
So you're no longer cooperating, you're like fighting each other, and there's just little mini games, and they're a fun little break away from things.
And platformers aren't really your wife's genre,
They're
so
not, but she's enjoying it.
that's good.
So yeah, and it's not like the trickiest platform. Like there are some, the boss battles can get a little hectic sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard that, and that's why I think this one actually would work out pretty well between my wife and I. But A Way Out is a lot less platformer and more like almost like playing a co-op Heavy Rain style game in some
Oh,
ways,
that's weird.
which is it's very interesting. But I think it's a little bit Heavy Rain and a little bit like modern standard 3D action game. So at one point there's a stealth segment, and people who don't play games very often aren't used to stealth logic the way that people who have had to play every crappy stealth section over the past 29 years of their lives are.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we'll make it through A Way Out, but I was hopeful when I heard about this game because she can make do with some more, like, I don't know, I wouldn't call this cutesy, it's about divorce, but it's a
It's
little
got a
more
cutesy
stylish.
style.
Okay, yeah, it's a little more stylish, and it's, the idea of a platformer is a little more approachable than a 3D action game
I
of
mean,
sorts.
you can only be so depressed when you're dealing with like squirrels that talk to you and where they're wearing army uniforms and
Yeah.
stuff.
Do you think the story is, like, hits its
Yeah.
marks?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's good.
I've only heard good things about it, and
Yes.
I like the developer.
They even have a little Diablo segment where you get like 3 attack buttons and you're going crazy. So
Does it play better than Diablo?
I mean, yeah, I think so. But
Okay.
I also don't hold Diablo 3 in high regard
Well, I don't anymore either.
because there's actually like slight puzzle solving, so it immediately puts it above Diablo where it's just mindless mashing. So there you go.
Is it like $20?
It's 40.
Yeah.
But if you have Game Pass, it is 35.99
Wait,
because
what? Oh, because of EA Play.
so
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it is worth that price tag. But
yeah.
you're a cheapskate, so you might want to.
I am. I think the EA Play theory is 9 months until 9 months from release to EA
Well,
Play.
yeah, it'll probably go on there 'cause I'm sure
I might wait
Unraveled's
it
on
out.
there.
I might
So,
wait it out.
well, do what you must do.
See,
But
I'll see if Sarah sticks with A Way Out because we played for like an hour. We'll see.
I will
It's
say it is
fun.
worth your time. I have also bit into the Monster Hunter Rise pill, but as I said, I want to talk about that with Setzer. But I
That game
will
looks really nice for a
will
Switch game.
briefly talk about it. this game is amazing. It is so much fun. Any fears I had about it being on the Switch have been erased. It is. It looks way better portably than on the TV, in my opinion. I will get into more specifics next week, but I think this is an easy Game of the Year contender. It is.
Watching videos of this game running on the Switch are actually mind blowing.
Well, it runs great, and this is the first time I will say Switch Online is a must. If you do not have Nintendo Online, get it for if you have this game because the online experience is fantastic.
You're killing me. I don't like Monster Hunter, but there's something about this game that is like it's calling to me.
Well, I was going to wait. I was like, well, I don't want to play Code Vein anymore, and the zeitgeist around this game is so like crazy. Like people are
Yeah.
just talking about how good it is, and when I played Worlds, I don't know. I didn't play a lot of multiplayer at first because I wanted to learn the fights, and my thinking going to this was like, well, this is when most people are playing. The low ranked fights are going to have people in like lobbies to play them.
Mhm.
Later on, like in like November or whatever, whenever Setzer gets a Switch, which is when I was thinking about getting it originally, there won't be so many like people playing the low level quests. It'll be all the hardcores and they'll be on the high level stuff. So let's just get in now. And let me tell you, it is something else. I because I have the experience of World, I don't think there's a big learning curve, but
Mhm.
you might have one, so I can't really attest to your experience. But
Yeah. I
it
really should play that demo. I I, I keep hearing effusive praise for this game, like
worth the
well
hype.
beyond what I expected.
Yes, I expected. I went from like having no interest in this game because I was like, this is a Switch version of a game that I'd rather play on a big console, to thinking this is like easily a game of the year.
Oh, that is a surprise, and it's done really well. I felt like in spite of dropping kind of randomly, like in the middle of March or at the end of March, right at the end of the fiscal year, I was kind of worried about it, but it seems like it has exceeded everybody's expectations and sold quite well.
And it sold quite well. I will say on the TV, it looks rough. It
Yeah,
looks like a really better looking PS2 game at
the
times.
Switch is meant to be played in your hands.
But on portable, it looks great. It looks
It is
so
meant to
good.
be played in your hands on the Switch Lite screen.
But I imagine that this game's getting ported to PC later this year, so I
Oh, okay.
imagine it'll look really good there. But I mean, this I feel like this was meant to be played portably or on the go, like the old school Monster
Yeah,
Hunters.
I mean that's what Monster Hunter is in Japan. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But for anyone curious, I use great swords. Uh, since all play styles are different and they control differently, this game has insane replay value. But because I'm a casual baby, I stick with greatsword. So there you go. We'll see if you can stomach the demo. I think if you were to invest time and actually learn the game, it's fantastic because it's like short play, and you can play for like 20 minutes and get what quest done. Say, all right, I've had my fill today. This has been one hell of a year for Switch so far for me, with 3D
Yeah,
World and
that's
Bravely Default 2 and this, and then
that's
Pokemon
some good
Snap in
games.
April. So quite a year. But that's pretty much it for what I've been playing. I'll get more into Monster Hunter next week, so because Setzer will be able to talk more specifics with me. But
Hmm.
just for right now, just know that I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, good.
Cheston, let's get started on the news then.
All right. Well, I'm a very non-traditional person here, so I'm gonna start with some obituaries. How do you feel about that?
Oh, this is going so crazy. It's so I'm not used to this.
Yeah. Well, you're a little too excited. It should be somber, you
Oh,
jerk.
oh my bad.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
All right. Well, we'll start with Mario.
Oh, the
Mario died
king.
this week.
Rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah. So, CNN reported that people were very concerned that Mario was going to die
I can't believe CNN reported this.
because a meme started by uh, journalist Jeff Grubb got a little out of hand on Twitter, and lo and behold, people started to tweet about Mario dying, and CNN picked it up, and they found, as we all knew, that Mario didn't really die so much as the 35th anniversary of Mario is now over, and what that means is that Super Mario 3D All Stars is no longer available digitally,
You can't buy it. You
and
either
if you
have it or
can
you
find
don't.
it, you can only find it physically if your store has not sold all their copies. So I guess good luck if you haven't bought it yet.
Yeah, you
Go
could
out.
probably, if you wait a couple months, you could probably sell your copy on eBay for a little bit of money, a bit of a
It
profit.
sold so many copies. I think it'll take several years to accrue value.
No, that's true. It was
Um,
quite the
we'll
success.
see. We'll see though. So not only did 3D World or 3D All Stars die a sudden death on March 31st, this also saw the end of Super Mario 35, the online-only Nintendo Switch Online game, and in a move that is totally related to Mario, the Fire Emblem translations also
Yes.
died on March 31st. Oh, and that Game & Watch that sold at Target for
No.
$50.
Yes.
That
Yes.
also
I should have
is
bought
going to
that.
be pulled from shelves. And I bet you could find those because every time I go to Target, I see like 20 of them.
Ah, yeah.
So I think that one you're probably okay with. So as we mourn the death of Mario, Derek, what's your favorite Mario memory?
I liked, I liked like when I played Mario 35 every night for like 2 weeks and then stopped playing it. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I was gonna say my favorite Mario memory was when Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga prevented my virgin eyes from witnessing uncensored female nudity during the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That was during Janet Jackson's thing, huh?
Thank you, Mario.
Thank Mario
Who
helping
knows
you
what my
out
life would have been had I been exposed at such a young
when
age.
it went down a rough path.
Instead, I was playing Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which is a great game.
It's weird that Fire Emblem was lumped into the March
It
31st
sure
date.
is.
They announced that it was a limited time game when it launched, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised that it was that it ended the same
It
time
really didn't
because
make sense for that to be limited time.
now that one I think is fairly obvious is going to go to Nintendo Switch Online. Nintendo's plan of attack seems to be they don't want you to own their old games. So
Hmm.
for old stuff like this, they'll be limited releases going forward. I think. I am pretty sure by the end of this year, the NES Fire Emblem will be on NSO. Eventually, the N64 and GameCube games will be there, but who knows when.
Hmm.
My gut is N64 gets added later this year with the Switch Pro, but we'll see on that. And you have to launch with Mario 64. There's like you can't not launch with that game.
Correct.
so
That
so
was
I
their philosophy in 1996, and it still
yes.
holds true.
So I think that is why the Mario collection got pulled in general because they want you to buy NSO. So,
Hmm.
but we will see if I'm right. But that's my gut on that.
I think you're right. I think that in the next, honestly, based on some things I've been reading, I think in the next few weeks, I wouldn't be shocked if the 64 portion of Nintendo Switch Online was added. Hey, they tooketh away something, they should add something back. So I think that's where Mario 64 will end up. I do think eventually the GameCube games will either be added there or through a new virtual console program on the Switch, or just as eShop releases. They might not even give it a special name.
Well, they need to because like we've known the GameCube works on the Switch since Switch launched basically,
Yeah,
and that's been 4 years. So it would be nice to because the GameCube's got quite a classic library that's a lot of games have not seen re-release. So it would be nice to get those.
yeah, and I think they will, and I think Galaxy will eventually be maybe bundled with Galaxy 2 or maybe just sold separately. Um, Either way, I think those games I'm not too worried about. It is, I think, here a bigger bummer to have to say goodbye to Mario 35, which, is just gone. I mean,
There's
there's no
no
way to play
reason.
that game.
Yeah, there's no reason
I
to
did
end
not
it.
like that game one bit, actually, but I know people liked it,
I liked
and
it.
there's no good reason to take it off. So
No,
it just kind of sucks.
no. I mean, I think maybe that's something Nintendo was experimenting with, like a limited time event sort of game.
Yes, and I understand that, and I think that works well for some things. Like if you remember, the 360 had like 1 versus 100,
I
and that
remember
was like a
that.
live broadcast. So to me, that made sense as a limited time thing. But I mean, Mario 35 is just a matchmaking online video game, so I really don't get it.
Maybe they'll do something with Zelda later this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to me that shouldn't eliminate the Mario game, but I also know that Nintendo doesn't operate on the
Yeah,
same plane of existence as the rest of
yeah, they
us.
don't use the same logic
Yeah.
normal humans do.
So they don't That's just a very Nintendo move. I think that's sad, and I think the 3D All Stars is a lesser loss. I hope if you wanted it at this point, you got it. It sold something like 8, 9 million copies, so I'm trusting that you actually did get it, unless you didn't have a Switch. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But again, I think those games will be released in some other form, and you'll be fine. So
Yes, you'll be able to play them on your Nintendo Switch Online.
I will not mourn this one too much. I think it sucks. I am not trying to excuse it. I don't want people to think the Nintendo fanboy is excusing what Nintendo is doing. No, I think it's terrible, but I think if we're going to rate the terribleness here, it's the death of Mario 35 is the real loss,
Yes.
because that game will only exist again if Nintendo deigns to release it, or if modders release something on PC, which is probably the more likely outcome.
Yeah, that's more likely.
So that is one death in the books, which one death, more like the Titanic, really. So that's like the Titanic. This is like the Titanic 2, the sequel that James Cameron didn't want you to see, which is the closure of all of the PlayStation Network legacy stores. So PSP, PS3, and Vita, which we talked about last week as a rumor, has now been confirmed. Sony has come out and confirmed that they are putting these out to pasture. And as of July, you will no longer be able to download PSP or PS3 games, or purchase, I should say. That's important. And as of August, you will no longer be able to purchase new Vita games. You will be able to download your old games. For now, you have a few months to try and pick up any games that you did not buy for these platforms. Derek, you have a pretty storied history with at least two of these platforms.
Yes.
So do you have any recommendations for games that will soon be very hard to come by and might no longer exist at all after these stores shutter down?
Buy any PS1 game you can.
Yes, that was my recommendation, because some of those PS1 games are going to be pretty expensive after this.
Xenogears and Chrono Cross currently have no other way of being purchased outside of secondhand.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy Tactics, the original version, this is the only way to play that one. Otherwise, you're getting War of the Lions on mobile and anywhere else it may be. Let's see. You have, I don't know. I don't really care that much about PSP exclusives like the Daxter game,
yeah,
but those are going away too. I have no fondness for the PSP minis at all. I think they're like just shovelware crap, but they're going away. It's insane. Like a bunch of PS2 games are going away. The PS4 got PS2 support in quotes because it's like barely any. There's like 30 games or something on there. With this, I think 200 something PS2 games are going away, which is sad because it was a great era.
yeah, it's a big loss for that. I think the PS1 classics, to me, are one of the bigger losses, because some of those games have no chance. Like, I was looking this up to confirm because I was pretty sure it's on there. So Suikoden 2,
Yes.
a very beloved RPG, that's on those stores. That game's going away. That game's not going to be re-released. That's Konami. And if you want to play that legally,
It's $200 or
it's
so.
it's $500 on eBay. So
It's gone up.
yeah, it's that game, and I expect that there will be a lot of games that go up after this little bit of turmoil here.
Yes. Well, yeah. A lot of those PS1 games that were released digitally was like a good way to experience like expensive games. Like Suikoden 2 was a big one for that. This is face facts. Not going to dance around it. If you want to play some of these games, the best way to do it is morally ambiguous. The gray, gray morality.
I don't
Um,
really think it's ambiguous anymore. I
no.
think if Sony is going to shut this store down and not provide a channel to continue to play these games for people who, I know I know somebody will say that you can still download your purchases, which is true. But there are going to be people who maybe hadn't heard about these games, and maybe in the future they hear about them and want to track down a way to play them, and they're going to look for legal channels first, because that's what most people do, and they're going to see that they don't exist, and they're going to go download it. And I would say I don't feel bad about
I
it
don't feel bad
one bit.
about it at all.
No, I don't think it's ambiguous anymore on this one.
Well, I've always been pretty lenient towards that stuff.
Yeah, I think with these though, it's especially now justified, because again, There's no other channel. They're not going to release Suikoden 2, and I'm not gonna cry for the collector on eBay who's selling it for $500.
No, they're like the developers are not getting money for it.
Right.
So,
Like
so
that person, somebody will buy it. A collector, another collector will buy it. They'll get their money, but there's a limited number of those copies, and there's an infinite number of people. Well, there's technically a finite, but let's just say infinite number of people in the future who could one day wish to play Suikoden or the likes from
and
this store.
there's also things like Persona 2, the PSP remake of that.
Yeah.
That's going away. Persona 1, very popular franchise.
Persona 3.
Persona 3 Portable.
Yeah.
That's actually the only way you can currently purchase Persona 3 outside of secondhand. I wonder if that'll change, but it's just kind of sad.
It is a big bummer, and it reminds me that during that generation of the PS3 and the tangentially the PSP, there was always talk from journalists on podcasts like, what will happen when the new generation comes? What will happen to our purchases? And it continues to this day to blow my mind that the answer to their question was, they'll just go away. Like, there was no answer, and most of those purchases will, in fact,
Well, their
just
purchases
go
will be
away.
there. You can
Yes,
download
but
them.
the idea was that talking about the next platform, like moving
Right.
to the PS4, moving to the Xbox One, what will happen to these purchases? Will they carry over? And for the longest time on both platforms, the answer was, no, they're just done. You're just out of luck. You better keep your PS3. You better keep your 360. And Microsoft didn't do an 100% perfect solution, but they at least did something.
Well, they have a lot of classics that are backwards compatible. There's holes. There are holes in the
Yes, there are
library.
holes, but it's better than
Nothing. Right.
just nothing. And so now when these stores close, and that's pretty much it for these
Well, I
platforms, and
mean,
you better
yeah.
hope that your PS3 or PSP or Vita doesn't die, because I could see that making it a little more complicated.
I mean, the PS2 and PS1 have such like a deep, rich catalog that it's just frustrating that Sony doesn't embrace their history more.
Yeah.
I
I
think that it's so hypocritical to release something like Astro's Playroom, which is just all nostalgia, and then like, oh, by the way, we don't care if you can actually play PS1, PS2 games or whatever.
yeah.
Like they made a big song and dance about putting PS2 games on PS4, and the amount that they have on there is so pathetically small. It's insulting, but what are you gonna do? They just don't
It's
care.
clearly for them, it's a business calculation. This doesn't make money the way that our new games do, so it's not valuable to us. I think there's some worth in a company like Sony, of the size of Sony, sometimes doing things that maybe aren't super lucrative, but they do build goodwill, because that goodwill can translate to more money. Me personally, I don't have a PS5, but if I one day get one, I'm going to be a lot more hesitant about buying anything on the platform that isn't a physical game.
Right.
Just period. Like I wouldn't trust. I know that the PS4 purchases work on the PS5, and I believe that when a PS6 happens, it will be backwards compatible with the PS5. But can I trust it 100%? Would I bet on it? No, I wouldn't bet on it.
No, nor
And
should
I
you.
think that's again, that's a calculation they're making now, and it makes them feel good, and they can look at their profits and say they're doing awesome, and that's great for now. I just worry about long-term ramifications of decisions like this for them. I think the industry's better when these companies respect their own history, and
Yeah.
not only do they work for profits, but they also work for their players. And right now, with moves like this, I look at it and go that I think that Sony is mostly in the business of making money, which all of them are,
Yes.
make no mistake, but it also looks like they just really don't care about anything else, which at least you can kind of like squint at Microsoft and say it seems like they kind of care a little bit,
A
at
little.
least.
But I mean, look, the first thing I do on a Microsoft sale is I'll look for the backwards compatible games that are on sale because they're usually like a couple dollars. But that's just you just don't have that option on PlayStation. So
you have PS Now, which is a solution. I
A
understand,
solution,
but
but
it's streaming. It's still not quite there yet for a lot of people, and it's not how everybody wants to experience their games. And those games can just be plucked from the service at the whim of their publishers. So I think something more permanent, where you can say purchase these games and download them to new consoles, would maybe be more preferable to a lot of people who like PlayStation. People want to buy these games and play them. Like, there's no question about it. So it just sucks that there is now less of a way to do that.
there's also no legal way to purchase Metal Gear Solid 1 and
Except for
Metal
on
Gear Solid.
PC.
Oh, you can buy it PC Metal Gear Solid
It
1?
is on good old games. I had to look it up.
How about that? Well, Metal
But
Gear Solid
that's
4
not the best version
remains
of Metal Gear Solid 1.
Metal Gear Solid 4 remains locked.
Yes.
PlayStation 3. Maybe one day, but for goodness sakes, when?
Does that mean that Metal Gear Solid 4 will become like Demon Souls was, where it was the best Souls game because it was the one nobody could play?
I hope
And
that does
now,
not have that reputation because
well,
they are
good news
lying
for
to
you. I don't think
themselves.
it will.
But yeah, that's just sad. It's just sad.
Yeah, and Sony has had a bit of an interesting week, and it stems from this decision and a few other decisions that just felt like they snowballed from this one decision. First, in what is basically just the fallout of this, there was a lot of discussion among developers that there was not communication from Sony on this end, and there were still developers who were either one, working on Vita games, or two, were still making money on their Vita games, and they were not warned about this at all. They found out about this through Twitter, and so a lot of them have taken to canceling their Vita games, or they've had to kind of adjust their outlook for some of their games. Some of them had to cancel patches that they were planning because this, you're not going to be able to publish new content for very much longer. And I think the obvious thing you could say is, well, why would you do this? Because the Vita's been technically dead for a few years, so it's kind of silly that you'd be counting on the Vita to still be around. At the same time, though, I would say it's on Sony as a producer of these consoles and the rights holders to these stores and all that to let people know maybe a little bit in advance so they're not working on games with release dates in mind that aren't going to be possible because the store just isn't going to exist.
Well, people do buy indie games on the Vita.
Yes, they still do.
That is the one spot where it never truly died. So you need to at least like work with your partners. I understand that they're not like big AAA game money that you're losing here, but you should at least tell them what's going on.
Yeah, they're not entitled to this store being around forever by any
No,
means,
they're
but
not, but they should at
they're
least be given a
entitled
heads
to
up.
at least kind of know that something's up.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there was a story about someone that like bought a Vita development kit like this year and weren't told that this was in the works. Like, so you got to be a little more forthcoming.
Just very disappointing.
They should know better.
They they should, but we know how these console cycles go. The team that's in front tends to coast, and they kind of just think they can do what they want and they don't worry about the repercussions, and the team that's coming from behind tries a lot harder, and then they switch places and then they switch roles too.
Well, I've seen no indication that they're going to switch places.
I haven't
Uh,
really seen an indication that they're going to switch places for now either, but they're certainly acting in a way that wouldn't surprise me if in several years we're back where we were, a decade ago, with Microsoft on top in the U.S. and Sony in second place, and then we just see it continually swap back and forth for generations to come.
from a consumer standpoint, I think Microsoft is head and shoulders above Sony at the moment. They clearly are putting out more stuff for more people. I just
Sony has its first party, which Microsoft has a lot of first parties, but they don't have as much to show for it right now.
not yet.
Not yet. So I can, obviously there's going to be people who are attached to that, but if that first party lineup builds, it's going to be important for Sony to start to try and reach out a little bit more.
Yes.
Maybe communicate, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah, and this is a perfect segue into this. Speaking
Yes,
of,
exclusives.
Microsoft, and maybe in a lot of ways for consumers being heads and shoulders above Sony in terms of, let's say, being consumer friendly, or at least giving the appearance of being consumer friendly. In what is, I think, the most shocking story since the Bethesda acquisition, MLB The Show, which is a first-party, Sony-developed baseball simulation game, will be launching in April, on April 20th, for $70 on the PlayStation 5 and on the Xbox Series S and X. However, on the Xbox Series S and X, it will be launching day one on Game Pass, which
I
is
could not believe it.
frankly unbelievable. I actually remember having conversations about this game with another friend of mine, and he was mentioning how he wasn't going to play it because it was $70, and we both kind of laughed at the idea that, well, obviously it's never going to come to Game Pass. So if you're going to play it, you're going to pay up, or you're going to have to wait for a sale. And so when I saw this headline pop up on the internet, I actually had to like double back, and I spent the whole day just almost in shock. Like, how did they get this done? How did they make this deal? Because it's still $70 on the PlayStation, and there is no way to get it for less on that store.
It's a complicated issue. My assumption is that I feel like MLB is the publisher on the Xbox. So I think Microsoft probably works with MLB to get this done and
Yes,
cut Sony out. But
surely.
I have no way of knowing. Because I can't imagine Sony would sign off on, like, hey, let's make this
No,
exclusive.
it would be insane for them to do so, but it's one of those things where I understand. I've seen some people say, well, this doesn't really change anything if you have a PlayStation. And that's true. You were going
That's
to pay
true.
$70 before, you'll still pay $70 now. But that's not how human psychology works. If you are someone who only has a PlayStation platform and you like baseball and you buy this game year in and year out and you have supported this franchise through and through, you're going to look across the aisle and say, okay, all these people who have never bought this game, who have never played this game, who have a platform that until now couldn't play it, are going to get this game as a part of their subscription service, so basically for free. And I'm going to be left with the tab for $70. This kind of blows.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got tired of paying yearly for MLB The Show. Like last year, I waited till it was on sale for like $20 before I got it. So this is big news because I was going to wait, but now day one, I can get right in there. This is insanity.
It
I've never seen anything like it.
it's really very bizarre. It would be like a Nintendo first party game coming to Game Pass almost. Not as crazy, but same idea. Something else that used to be console exclusive is now somehow a better sell on a competitor's platform.
Well, to put this like in a different terms, like for sports fans, this game is a legitimate console seller. I've actually know people that bought PS4s solely to play MLB The Show. This being a part of Game Pass, I think takes away that incentive to buy a PlayStation 5. Like, if you buy an Xbox, that baseball game's there and it's part of Game Pass. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like I think in order to make like a strong library, you need like those exclusives of all sorts of genres to bring people in. And I think Sony lost their sports one.
They did, and they were already going to lose a little bit of the edge when it was not exclusive anymore, which was very much an MLB decision from what most people understand. But now it seems like to me they're almost caught flat-footed. Like, how do you respond to this? Do you put it on PlayStation Plus? Do you put it on PlayStation Now? Do you just roll the dice and hope that most of your players probably only have a PlayStation 5 anyway, so you'll still get the same sell through, which is probably what they're counting on?
Well, I assume they're thinking most of their business will be done on PlayStation 4. I don't know. It's unfortunate for them this happened year one for these consoles because I think you would have had people buy PS5s for this game, you know.
Yeah,
If
I think you're right, if they can
but,
find one.
but yes, if they can find one. But because of the scarcity, a lot of people that may want the PS5 don't have it. So now that they may be thinking about Series X or S when they weren't before. but I guess we'll see. I mean, I think it comes down to, do my friends have PS5s? Like if they do, then
Right.
that's what I'm getting.
I think if I were a PlayStation, like the kind of person who only has a PlayStation system, I mean, I'd probably still buy this game because, I mean, really, what else is coming out these days until Ratchet in a few months?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it would leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth knowing that it was very affordable elsewhere.
Oh, I'd be annoyed.
Yeah,
That's for
thankfully
sure.
for me, I have the opposite problem, which is I don't have a PlayStation 5, so I'll miss out on Ratchet. But I will have this MLB The Show for free, which is great because I was gonna pay $70 for it, but
I probably would have waited, but day one for me. I mean,
yeah,
why not?
easily,
Yeah.
absolutely now. There's no
I I
question.
I love MLB The Show. So
Yeah.
so
I would
so no
love it.
problem.
I would honestly love it if this was the model for all sports games
That's what it should be.
to
Oh,
go
I
on
would
these
love it.
subscription services because then I wouldn't feel quite so bad buying these. And I'm not into too many sports. I don't really watch basketball or hockey, so I can get by with the old versions of that they put on these services. But for football and baseball, I do tend to know the comings and goings. So if these future sports games wanted to start by being on Game Pass, I think that would be, I mean, pretty swell for me from a consumer's side, and I wouldn't be shocked if they also made a little bit on the back end with their crazy scams that they run on their ultimate teams.
Well, in case you're wondering why we're shilling Microsoft, we both had our COVID vaccines. So
Yes, that's true. So we have to. I it's hard. I hate talking about this because I mean, first of all, I'm a Nintendo fan, so I'm a Nintendo fanboy. There's no question about that. I just happen to have an Xbox console because I'm cheap and it's more affordable. But I mentioned this, like when you look at fanboy discourse, it's like when you talk about Microsoft stuff, it's hard not to sound like a shill sometimes.
right. Well, it's not
Because
our fault
sometimes
that they're
it's such a
consumer friendly.
stupidly good deal. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like you have to sound like an absolute like Microsoft sellout sometimes because I mean seriously, this was a $70 purchase that I'm just going to pay $0 for because I have a Game Pass subscription that I got with my Series S.
I can't imagine Sony is happy about this. I wonder if when the rights to make the show expire, if Sony will just like let it go. I don't know.
And just not do baseball anymore?
They might not. I mean, I don't know. It depends. But I guess we'll see.
That is a dark future I don't want to think about.
I don't want to either, but they're actively helping their competition, so it's
Yeah,
strange.
they are on accident, and that's
I just don't want it to go back to 2K's hands or something, and then like there's no good baseball
I
games
played
anymore.
2K baseball. That was not great.
Well, back in the day, it was fine.
It was, but by the end of it,
I
it
have
was
no
not.
faith in 2K as a developer or a publisher. I hate them. So
Yeah.
less sports in their hands, please.
Yes, this is the last for me. This is the last
This is the
sports game
the
that
only
has.
sports game I play.
Yeah, this
So,
is the sports game that has continued to be exceptional, and it does have its own microtransaction hellhole.
but I don't mess with it. I don't care
But
about that.
you can still get pretty much everything out of the game, I think, without
I just
indulging in that.
I just make my pitcher or hitter in the road to the show and play for a little while, and then I'm good. I get my fill.
Yep.
So
Well, that's great news for us. Maybe not great news for Sony. And God, this is Setzer's gonna be real mad when he comes back. He's gonna think the Nintendo Microsoft fanboy took over
the Wii 60
and
days are back.
just made it all about Sony's foibles. But man, Sony had a rough week.
Sorry, Sony ponies.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want a PS5. Listen, I want one. I want to play Ratchet. But you just have to look at this and say Sony had a bad week, and the bad week concluded for me with the continued slow demise of Sony Japan Studios. They lost several more names. Shunsuke Saito, who was a designer and animator for the excellent Gravity Rush and
Yeah.
probably good Gravity Rush too. Kintaro Motomura, my bad.
From Mortal Kombat 3. Yeah.
Yes, he's still getting work these days. He was a senior producer on many games that they worked on, including Wild Arms.
Wow.
Hey,
Wow. That's
yeah,
a long time.
he's a
He's a vet.
long He's. It says veteran developer on this article. Let me tell you, that
That's a
gives new meaning to the word veteran.
yeah, that's a veteran, all right.
Yeah, even remembering Wild Arms makes you a veteran.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
Wild Arms 3 is one of the few PS2 games on PS4, so there you go.
yeah, not Wild Arms 5.
No, 3 is the one.
And also Yasutaka Asakura and Gavin Moore, who had been there for 24 years.
That's a long time.
So these are not people just like coming and going. These are longtime people hitting the road because the writing is on the wall that at Sony they are about the Western market, and
What about the
that
dad
market has no
games?
time for these quirky Japanese games. Derek, how sad are you?
Extremely.
Yeah.
The only the my main attraction to the PlayStation is their Japanese, like, love them or hate them. The Japanese games are kind of go there first, and if Microsoft gets them later, that's great. And the Sony Japan studio creates the Sony stuff I'm most interested in, like Parappa and Eco and Shadow of the Colossus and that stuff. I really like. I played Last of Us Part Two, and I enjoy Uncharted, but the Sony exclusives I enjoy are the wacky things, and that's just going away. It's frustrating.
Those wacky Japanese franchises are the franchises that built the backbone of the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2. And I those games you listed weren't necessarily always blockbuster releases, but I think as we've mentioned before, they always served as the nice artistic backbone that Sony could depend on. You had your big gaudy blockbuster hits like God of War, and then you could also turn around and play something like Shadow of the Colossus, which is comparatively very quiet and somber and serious.
Yeah, you want a diverse portfolio of games for a diverse audience.
And it,
Like, not
I know
everyone
that they're
plays
not. I
shooters and
know that
stuff.
these aren't money makers. I totally understand that, and I get why, from a business perspective, you look at something like Gravity Rush and go, eh, not a big deal.
But
But
people
I
who like
do,
those things do buy
they do,
consoles for them.
yeah, and I do think slowly over time that these kind of moves can erode your core. And I only say this because I saw it play out on the Wii. I saw a lot of people who were like dyed in the wool Nintendo fanboys who were never going to say a bad word about Nintendo who said, "Look at the Wii sales, look at how things are going. It doesn't matter if they're not paying attention to you. They are making money. You need to get over it. They'll always be on top now." And then within a few years, because those core people had left, and then the transient fans are not reliable and they left too, Nintendo was left holding the bag for that generation. And I don't want Sony to be in that position. I want all these companies to be healthy. I want them to put out the best consoles and best games they can. But when you just intentionally shutter the pieces that make you who you are, it's hard not to look at it and be very skeptical.
Well, a big reason I am going both ways is because I want the Japanese games, and Sony's the best place for that. What, but slowly and surely, Microsoft is getting the franchises. Like, all the
I
Yakuza games are on
yeah.
Game Pass.
Something I didn't mention in our docket that we read our news stories from, but I thought of when I pulled this story was that I think there's some legitimate concern that even like the kind of Japanese games that Sony used to get might no longer be prioritizing PlayStation. Like think about things like Dragon Quest. It was a foregone conclusion in the past that the new Dragon Quest would come to PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and I go, I don't know. And I look at a recent mobile release. It's a game by the Everybody's Golf
Yeah.
developers, or
Mhm.
Hot Shots Golf. It is their new golf game. It is only on smartphones. It is not on the PlayStation 5. It's
That would
not
be
on the PlayStation
unthinkable.
4.
Yeah.
It is somewhere else. And I look at that and, maybe it was just developed for mobile platforms because people in Japan love their mobile platforms. Or maybe they looked originally to continue with Sony, but then saw the writing on the wall and said, you know what? We're not welcome here anymore. They clearly don't prioritize us. They don't prioritize our games. let's just put our stuff on this platform that, I mean, it's Apple. It doesn't prioritize games at all.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The AAA Western stuff really does not appeal to me from Sony.
It appeals to a lot of people, and that's great. But
It
I don't think
does.
you should. You should. I don't think you should turn away any
No, you should, as
part
I
of your
said,
fan base.
you should have a big catalog to get a big number of people. Like I play those exclusive games sometimes, but I do not buy them day one, which is what they want. Like I am not going to buy the new God of War day one. Just not going to. Or well, if they make a Last of Us
Or
Part
day 1000
Three,
for that matter.
yeah, for sure. I'll never buy that probably. Never. I mean, and Last of Us Part Three, if they ever make one, won't buy that right away. I might try Horizon Zero Dawn 2 whenever that comes out, but generally speaking, these this is like shutting me off. So what I'm into for Sony now is third party stuff like Persona 5 still is a Sony exclusive. Who knows how long that'll last? I assume 6 will be, but like even stuff like Disgaea 6, formerly that was always like Sony only, launching on the Switch too. So it just seems like they're losing like their Japanese stuff.
And from their perspective, again, you can look and say we're doing great right now, we're doing awesome, never been more profitable. But I think you and I both know, as people who have been playing video games for way too long, that
Yes,
this industry moves fast.
it does.
And we there was several years where sports games were dominant. The biggest sellers, critically acclaimed. There were years where first-person shooters were everything.
Yes.
And right now we're in this era where these third-person action-adventure games are
Oh,
hot
it's
and
hot.
they sell really well.
But
But
people are gonna get tired of them.
they're gonna get tired of it, and they're gonna say, "Been there, done that." They're gonna have played through God of War 2 and Last of Us 2 and Horizon 2 and all these other sequels to these Sony first-party games that did well on PS4, and after those, you have to wonder if they're not gonna be a little tired.
Where's my Mr. Mosquito 2? Come on.
Yeah, they're gonna be a little tired, and they're gonna start to look for something else. And I think it helps to have a studio like Sony Japan because you never know what the next new trend is going to be.
Right.
And nobody thought battle royales would be the next hotness, and then some modder on Steam dropped PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and suddenly we can't get enough of these battle royale games. And you having a creative, quirky studio like Sony Japan around, like who knows? I mean, they could invent something like they're not going to invent a battle royale or a big Western pleaser, but they could invent something, I don't know. I'm thinking along the lines of Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
That was a small developer that brought that around, and that took over the industry for several years.
Well, I look at it like on television where they'll have the highly rated shows, but they'll also keep around like prestige shows for, just quality. Like if you look at NBC, 30 Rock was not a ratings hit at all, but it stuck around forever because it was just a good show. They wanted it on their catalog. Mad Men on AMC did nowhere near the numbers of Breaking Bad or Walking Dead, but they kept it around because it was a quality show and they wanted that in their portfolio. So it feels like for this, they're just like, fuck that. Let's just go with what makes us money. It's kind of frustrating.
I think they should be careful. Like I said, I think it'll be fine for a long time, and I think you'll be able to say, "Oh, look, it didn't affect them at all." But again, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years it starts to feel a little more dire,
Yeah.
and you
Well,
start to see Sony making the kind of moves they made at the end of the PS3 and beginning of the PS4
I hope so. That
when they
Sony was
were
awesome.
when they were building the list and trying to
They're
you
trying to
know
please people.
trying to please people.
I enjoyed that PS3 because it
That was
looked
a
like
fun era. I
that they
enjoyed that.
were when the PS Now, oh yeah, PS Plus first started, and they're like, all right, like basically all the best PS3 games are free to own or free to PS Plus owners. Like, oh hell yeah! Launched with VF5 Final Showdown.
It was a very different Sony, and it's a Sony that continues to get more and more distant from the Sony of today.
Yes, I miss it. They flipped with Microsoft.
They did, and they will flip again.
Yeah, well, it keeps flipping until one of them goes out of business.
And it is my goal to try and pick out who's going to flip the worst, so I can pick the right platform that doesn't make me angry. And I think I've done that so far. I'm
So
feeling
far,
pretty
so
good
good.
about my Series S continues to look better every day.
Well, I like both, but
Yes, I know. I actually I do like both. I would love to have a PS5. Just really hard to get,
it
really
is
expensive.
it is difficult.
Yeah. So some non-Sony bad news. We'll give Sony a break. We'll stop. We'll stop. I don't want to make Setzer too upset when he gets back and realize I turned this into a Nintendo Insider podcast. And we'll talk about some other insiders who had their hands slapped this week by everyone's favorite Digital Millennium Copyright Act,
Oh boy.
the Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
Yes.
Yes, everyone's favorite,
I
and
hate those guys.
it turned its ugly head in a interesting way this week when journalists and just folks on Twitter started leaking new content for Call of Duty Warzone. And talking about leaked content on Twitter is nothing new, but what was new was that later on these folks were told that their accounts were locked or these tweets were simply deleted because they violated the DMCA and they were basically taken down by Activision. And this is not good.
No.
And I think that whenever these stories happen with leaks, there's always a conversation had about how you handle leaks. Are they actually news? Because sometimes they're ill-gotten. Derek, you're actually ostensibly a journalist.
Yes.
So let's say one of these hot leaks shows up on your desk. What do you
Okay.
do with it?
It's news. It's out in
It's
the
news.
public already. You report on it. It's just what you do. It's just because like a journalist doesn't report on it doesn't mean the story goes away. Like you can DMCA this shit all you want. Like people know about it.
They do.
so so what's the point of like saying like, hey, you can't write about this on Kotaku or whatever? There's no point to it. It's just censorship, and that's wrong. We would get on the political people for it, so we should get on to Activision for this too.
Yeah, I think it's a bad look for Activision, and I think it's a shame that this happened.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I mean, I don't care at all about what they leaked. It's Warzone content, and it's Call of Duty content, which are two things I will avoid forever.
I mean, it's one thing if like the journalist was given confidential information and leaked it himself or whatever, like off the record stuff. But this is something that was like leaked on the Twitter and just was circulating, and people were reporting on something that was already out there. Like same thing with like when Last of Us Part Two leaked, and people were reporting on that, and they were similarly DMCA'd. I mean, it's just pointless. I think the more you try to stifle that conversation, the more people are going to search it out. You're kind of doing yourself a disservice in some ways.
I think these incidents are always interesting to discuss because you do see a surprising amount of people who take the position that leaks aren't necessarily newsworthy. I saw it with Elden Ring. I saw it with the Nintendo Giga leak. These are both things where people questioned the moral nature of posting stories about these leaks.
I see nothing morally wrong about it. If it's out there already, if you can Google search it and it pops up like what you're looking for, then I think it is your obligation as a reporter to report on it.
I think most people need to be reminded that journalists are not PR.
They're not.
They do not get paid to worry about the marketing campaigns of Activision.
No, they don't.
They don't get paid to worry about Nintendo's weirdly stringent policies around its own personal archives.
No, yeah. If a Nintendo Direct leaks like legitimately and is reported on, that's the reporter's right to do so. It is not like breaking any morality clause or anything like that. I can kind of see where people might think when like Kotaku was blacklisted for leaking Fallout 4 setting beforehand. I can kind of see where people are coming from in that regard, but even still, it's really like you have the information, you're not embargoed. I don't see why that's bad to report that.
I'm with you, and I especially for this case. I mean, it is literally just a map, from what I understand.
Yes, there is nothing like it's just a map. It's not like
So
a new game or something. It's not like this new Smash newcomer.
I really
Yes.
don't know what Activision hopes to accomplish because now everybody knows, and now they especially know because
Yes,
it's
because they
been
went out.
leaked.
Yes,
So, I'm sure there's some business dealing or they have some marketing plan, but I would think at this point these companies should be a little more flexible
should be more tech
and know
savvy.
they should know that there's always a chance they're going to get outed and they should have a backup plan, which their backup plan should just be, all right, yep, this is what's happening.
If I
Let's
can
roll with it.
go to like the Call of Duty Reddit and see this information, I should be able to report on it. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely.
So
But
they're
you
absolutely
can't.
in the wrong. They're abusing DMCA, I say, and something
Yes.
needs to be done about this stupid system. But we have a bunch of old fossils in Congress, so nothing will ever get done about it.
I'm not even sure I know what the DMCA does anymore. I used to, but now it just seems like it is used for basically just shorthand for big company doesn't like this, so it must go.
Yeah, it's pretty much that's pretty much it.
That's
And it's especially out of control on music. I mean, for goodness
oh,
sakes.
I mean, the music industry is preposterous.
Yes.
The music industry, which is now looking into using NFTs,
Yeah. Well,
because
what a shock.
there's those poor musicians. They don't make any money.
I'm just saying, no one is watching a 6 hour long Twitch stream for like a 2 minute clip of some shitty song from the year 2005. It's just, they're just not. So, but again, we have like our laws are written by old people that know shit about technology, so this won't change anytime soon.
Yes, they probably don't know anything about video games that wasn't featured in House of Cards,
Exactly.
which
Exactly.
means they
So
don't know
nothing,
anything about video games.
pretty much. So this is, I mean, shame on Activision. That's really all I can say. But hopefully, hopefully they get enough shit where people are less, I don't know, are less trigger happy to put claims on things like this.
I'm
But
giving them the big old tut tut.
yes,
Do not like that.
tisk tisk tisk.
Mm-hmm. I will slap their wrist.
Disavow.
They're gonna slap these journalists' wrists.
Yes. I guess that's it for us this week. You can reach us on Twitter at alltodaypod or on email alltodaypodcast@gmail.com. This is Derek.
And Cheston.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See you later.